This is Gamer Weekly, bringing you the latest of what the video game scene has to offer. On today's show, I have Cory of Underbite Games. We're going to be talking about their latest game, Super Dungeon Tactics. All right, and welcome to Gamer Weekly, the weekly show of games and other things. Actually, it's just all games. With me today is Cory from Underbite. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Thank you so much for coming onto the show on extremely short notice, but I do appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here.
So, how did Underbite Games start?
Basically, I branched off from a previous company. We were focused very heavily on outsourced games, so basically doing work for companies like Disney and Nickelodeon and a bunch of different places. I really felt like I wanted to, be able to be the creative drive behind the games we created. So we kind of talked and decided to branch off with a group of developers and artists and such. And we created Underbite Games as a goal was to get into either partnerships or eventually developing our own IP.
And the first partnership it looks like here is that you've partnered with Soda Pop Miniatures for Super Dungeon Tactics.
That's correct.
So how did that go? How did that come about?
We started talking with them. It was by chance. I went to a gaming convention in Chicago called Adepticon. Literally the day before the show started, I was like, "Oh, let's go down there and see who's down there." And my team and myself, we all love tabletop games as well, and we thought it'd be kind of a good fit to kind of focus. Our initial push of games was in that market, and we went down there and met up with the guys, and we've done some small projects here and there, and talked about different things, and eventually, really developed a good working relationship between the two studios. And they had talked to us about possibly doing some kind of small app with Super Dungeon Explorer, and we really felt like this was an opportunity for us to take a great property like Super Dungeon Explorer and push it, and form this partnership to create Super Dungeon Tactics.
And so does the gameplay very similar to the board game, or is it kind of like its own thing?
It's definitely its own thing. It's been really interesting at the conventions, because we get that question a lot, because it's a fairly popular board game. And we're borrowing some of the terms and definitely the character and the world, the characters in the world that have been created. But as far as gameplay wise, it's very unique compared to what the board game is.
And what are some elements that you guys are going to bring from the board game to the game? Is it mainly going to be just aesthetic wise, or is there other elements in there too?
There's a few other elements. We've, like the heroes, the characters you have to choose from, and the enemies. Everyone who's played the board game, especially the original, is going to be really familiar with what you see, and kind of some of the capabilities and tendencies of those characters and what they do. And some of the ideas of equipping your hero with different gear, we've reflected that in how we handle our gear. And then actually a lot of the terms. So you'll hear things like lance and sweep, which basically are different area effect attacks. Those terms, we used those same terms so that people who play the board game, or potentially people who play our digital game and then go to the board game, they're used to those terms and they know how to apply those.
And so will there be because What I've noticed with the Super Dungeon board game is that it's a game that has a lot of stuff in it. It seems like the moment you open that box, is just stuff pouring out of it. Like, whoa, what is all this stuff? Is it going to be a somewhat easier learning curve for those newer players too, or how is that going to go down?
Yeah, we as far as getting into it, it was interesting because we used the game pieces and the boards and stuff like that, but used our mechanics to actually paper prototype. So basically, build our digital game in physical form before we start coding. And that's how we started playtesting, and we got some actually really good responses for that. So it was really fun with new players who had never experienced the board game. That's how we did it. That also led to very rapid development and iterations without incurring much cost. But as far as our game goes, it's at its core, it's pretty easy to get into. There's not, anytime you have physical product with status effects and that kind of thing, you're always dealing with tokens, and you just have to get used to that. So it's our game. It's easier on a digital side to ease into the product. But once you get into it, I'd say they're pretty equal as far as complexity. It's just board games don't get the option of having tutorials and onboarding to get people up to speed over time.
I was about to say, because I play tabletop games as well. It's just there are some games that have intimidated me too much. Like the board game group that I have, we tried playing a game called Arkham Horror. I don't know if you've ever played that before. It was so challenging that we played it for 2 hours and we quit because we didn't know what one of the tokens things were, and it was so obvious in our face, like, oh, that's what it was. And we've never been so defeated. Like, wow, okay, cool. I guess we just won't play that game anymore. So are there other like once this game is done, are you guys wanting to do more of like expansions to go with it, kind of like in the same aspect of the board game, or are you guys thinking of maybe trying another board game IP, or just what are your guys' plans in the future for it?
If all goes well and what we hope it will, we definitely want to add on to the Super Dungeon Tactics, both in platforms as well as features. We've had a lot of requests for co-op, and people have been very gracious and understanding when we say, hey, we're a small indie team, so we can't put everything in the game, and we're just focused on making a good product when we release, and then we can listen to our user base and see where we want to go from there. And then we do have room for expansion in our leveling system and enemies and the world, that the area we're at. We haven't worked on that stuff yet, but we did design it around the ability to add an expansion. And we're not going to nickel and dime people to death. If we do it, we're going to do it up as a full experience at a valuable price, and go from there. So some of it's just going to be opening up the forums and hearing from people and saying, what are you guys enjoying? What do you want more of? And hopefully listening to our audience.
Yeah, and so what is the game coming out for? Is it just going to be a PC release, or what are we looking at here?
The initial launch will be PC and Mac through Steam. Everything's been approved. We got greenlit in like 11 days, which is pretty awesome. Really grateful for the people out there that supported us, and the storefront's all been approved by Steam, so it's available for your wish list type thing. So everything's set up for that, and then as long as sales are what we're hoping, we're hoping to open it up to console development. We're in the Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo development programs. So the hope is we can reach an additional group of people through that, and then also be working on either additional features or an expansion for the core game.
It's a lot of stuff going on there, but that's good though.
Yeah.
So what time frame are you guys thinking about dropping this game?
The target we're saying loosely is the fall, but our internally we're really pushing for September. We're not in a spot where we're gonna drop this product because we just have to get it out and make money. We're gonna make sure it's right. This is kind of our firstborn, so we want to make sure everyone understands what kind of studio we are and what we can make. And plus, this is Soda Pop Miniatures. This is their baby as well. As far as their core product. So we're making sure the product's right. But the goal is to hit the Steam store in September.
All right, sounds good. Awesome. Well, that's all the questions I have. If you guys are interested in the game, it is Super Dungeon Tactics, and it's by Underbite Games, and I think it's going to be a pretty awesome game. Definitely has an awesome look to it, and also check out Super Dungeon Explorer if you like playing board games as well. It's a very massive, giant board game, but if you can handle the curve of it, it's a pretty cool experience. So, Cory, once again, thank you so much for coming on to the show with me and meeting up with me so very soon.
Not a problem. I really appreciate you having me on.
All right, no problem. And if you like this show, listen to the other shows. Of course, Gadget.tv. All right, have a nice day, everybody. Thank you for listening to this week's Gamer Weekly. This is Justin Bannister signing off.